My name is Nicholas Vince, so make sure you watch this as often as possible.
Hi there, and welcome to Richard Barron Horror. If you enjoy all things Hellraiser and more, why don't you go ahead and give us a like and subscribe to our channel if you dare.
What kind of doors?
Doors to the pleasures of heaven or hell. I didn't care which.
Mind is a labyrinth, ladies and gentlemen. That's all. While the paths of the brain are plainly visible, its ways deceptively apparent, its destinations are unknown.
Have you ever been obsessed with a horror figure and wanted to know every facet of their origin, purpose, and meaning? The Chatterer from the Hellraiser mythos is one of those creations that lodges in the imagination. His face appears as if flesh has been pulled, pinned, and reshaped. His mouth is filled with unnaturally long metal teeth that emit a non-stop clicking. He is not the Cenobite's commander. That role belongs to Pinhead. Yet Chatterer acts as the team's physical enforcer, a presence of raw force who moves at the edges of their ceremonies and drags transgressors into the Cenobite realm. Unlike some of his companions, whose methods can be manipulative or intellectual, Chatterer's violence feels primal, quick, decisive, and focused on subduing victims to deliver them into the franchise's intertwining of pleasure and pain. His silent, piercing scream and the mechanical rattle of his teeth make him a figure that is both horrifying and strangely memorable. This reworking presents a thorough but rephrased exploration of Chatterer's visual symbolism, backstory in comics and film, on-set creation, theories about his origin in the 2022 reboot, his transformation from human into monster, behavioral profile, evolution across the franchise, and cultural impact, visual language, and symbolic meaning. Chatterer's aesthetic centers on the elimination or radical alteration of human sensory anatomy. He lacks functioning eyes and external ears. His face is taut, threaded, and manipulated into an almost carved mask. The most distinctive trait is his dental apparatus, rows of metallic teeth that produce an incessant clicking. That sound becomes his hallmark. It can be interpreted in multiple ways. On one level, the clicking is a byproduct of surgical modification and mechanical prosthetics. On a deeper level, it may be a sonic embodiment of relentless suffering, a reflexive noise that marks perpetual torment. The absence of sight and hearing implies enforced isolation. In horror, depriving an individual of primary senses is among the most disorienting forms of punishment. Chatterer's sensory void severs him from common human exchange, transforming him into a creature that must inhabit a world where touch, smell, and an instinctive awareness guide behavior. The Cenobites as a group pride themselves on extreme bodily alteration as a pathway to transcendent sensation. Chatterer's visage captures that paradox. His face is grotesque yet arranged with care. His mutilation reads as ritualized craftsmanship. Pins, stretched skin, and orderly metallic dental work produce a visual pattern combining horror and aesthetics. That tension between terrible physical injury and purposeful design is what renders Chatterer iconic. The performer and the practical work Nicholas Vince animated Chatterer on screen. Born on May 3, 1958 in West Sussex, England, Vince is an actor and writer closely associated with horror cinema.
I was discussing this show with Clive Barker. He said, monsters defy death. Frankenstein, his creature, Dracula, the Cenobites, they all defy death.
Bringing Chatterer to life demanded protracted makeup sessions. Special effects artists layered prosthetic appliances, adhesives, paints, and built components to allow the jaw and teeth to register as otherworldly. For Vince, the makeup process was physically draining. Lengthy immobilization, pressure from prosthetic pieces, and a heavy, restrictive costume challenged breath and movement. Those limitations dictated his approach. Deprived of clear vision and facial expressiveness, Vince created a physical vocabulary that communicated menace through posture, sudden spasms, slow mechanical motions, and the dramatic weight of stillness. He experimented on set, testing small twitches, abrupt jerks, and deliberate pacing until certain movements read as unsettling on camera. Many of those spontaneous choices became central to the character, giving Chatterer an unpredictable quality that felt authentic rather than staged. Vince has spoken about how the transformation into prosthetics helped him separate from his everyday identity and fully inhabit an entity removed from ordinary humanity. Canonical origins. Comics and film variations. Chatterer's history differs across media. The comics furnish the most expansive human origin. Before becoming the Cenobite, he was a man named Jim. Jim's early life was marked by violence, including a traumatic incident involving his father, which culminated in his placement in an orphanage. There, he formed a friendship with another boy, Seth, a connection that offered Jim a rare sense of belonging. As he matured, Jim drifted into darker spheres. He encountered the Lament configuration, the puzzle box that bridges the mortal world with Leviathan's domain. Jim came to be involved in distributing these boxes, a role that effectively made him a facilitator of others' contact with the Cenobite reality. This association linked him to Leviathan, the god of flesh, and set the stage for his eventual fate. A confrontation with Seth and subsequent events precipitated Jim's conversion into the figure now known as Chatterer. The metamorphosis stripped away his former identity. Traces of the man he had been, however, occasionally surface in the comics and lend a tragic resonance to the character. At one point, he briefly regained his human form, a moment that underscored the cost of his rebirth before he resumed his role among the Cenobites. 2022. Reboot and a speculative link. The 2022 Hellraiser film opened the door to renewed speculation about how humans transform into Cenobites. A popular fan theory posits that Joey, portrayed by Kit Clark, becomes a Cenobite akin to Chatterer. The film's opening sequence shows Joey being grotesquely mangled by the puzzle box's mechanisms, and the facial mutilation he suffers visually mirrors Chatterer's iconic trauma. Thematically, Hellraiser treats the Lament configuration as responsive to desire and transgression. The box delivers punishments and rebirths that mirror individual longing and violation. If Joey's injuries align with Chatterer's later form, the film could be read as offering a direct narrative link between Joey and a Chatterer-like entity. Though speculative, the theory fits Hellraiser's long-standing pattern of connecting personal vice or obsession with the creation of a Cenobite. Anatomy of the change, from human to Cenobite. The conversion into a Cenobite is both corporeal and metaphysical. For Jim and others, the process involves the systematic removal of familiar human attributes and the construction of new, ritualized ones. Eyes and ears are rendered non-functional, erasing ordinary modes of perception and isolating the subject from conventional experience. Skin is repositioned, pinned, or sutured in ways that emphasize both suffering and craftsmanship. Teeth are reworked into metallic arrays that click endlessly. These modifications are not arbitrary. They operate as ritual markers, instruments of punishment, and an aesthetic language meant to reflect the Cenobite's theology. The incessant teeth clicking can be read as a residual expression of pain, a means of nonverbal communication when language is stripped away, or a symbolic reminder of irrevocable change. Through surgical and supernatural alteration, identity is overwritten. The individual once known as Jim becomes an entity whose aims and loyalties are now aligned with Leviathan's realm. Behavioral profile. Chatterer is the Cenobite core's muscle. He is rarely verbose. He prefers action over rhetoric. When a situation calls for force, he is the one called upon. His behavior has an animalistic edge, driven by instinctive, predatory impulses rather than complex psychological torment. That quality makes him particularly menacing. He seizes, restrains, and escorts victims into the Cenobite experience with a single-minded efficiency. Yet, he is not a blank slate. Hints of previous humanity, glimpses of backstory, and occasional narrative focus give him a tragic dimension. He stands simultaneously as an agent of violence and as a being reshaped by suffering. Evolution over time. Across the Hellraiser films and ancillary material, Chatterer's appearance and role have shifted. Early portrayals relied on practical, handmade prosthetics that emphasized brutality and rough craftsmanship. Later incarnations benefited from improved materials, refined prosthetic techniques, animatronics, and subtle digital effects, which allowed finer detail without sacrificing the grotesque tone. These visual updates kept the character fresh for newer audiences and opened opportunities to explore his role more deeply. Some installments briefly highlighted him, expanding Cenobite lore and examining the consequences of becoming one. Through successive reinterpretations, Chatterer remained a touchstone for themes of identity, bodily transformation, and the consequences of crossing forbidden boundaries. Cultural footprint. Chatterer's influence extends beyond Hellraiser. He has become a touchstone of body horror aesthetics, representing the idea that the human form can be remade through ritualized mutilation and aesthetic extremity. Fans have responded to him with art, cosplay, and debate because his design is visually distinctive and thematically rich. Unlike monsters that exist purely for shock value, Chatterer's changes carry narrative meaning, sensory deprivation, ritual devotion, and the interplay of beauty and suffering. That interpretive depth helps explain why the character continues to fascinate horror enthusiasts. On-set anecdotes and performer reflections. Nicholas Vince has described the makeup sessions as challenging, yet rewarding. Creating Chatterer required long hours in the effects chair, during which prosthetics were layered and detailed. The mask and costume restricted motion, obscured vision, and strained breathing.
The idea was I would be crouching down and be very much a monkey creature in the way that, part of the chattering thing is that the monkeys chatter their teeth, or chimpanzees particularly chatter their teeth.
Vince compensated by developing precise physical choices to communicate threats without facial expression. Many of the character's memorable on-screen tics were the result of improvisation, as he tested small, controlled movements to see what registered as frightening. Those experiments yielded organic, unsettling moments that became integral to Chatterer's identity. Fan questions and ongoing debates. Chatterer prompts questions that continue to spark fan conversation. Does any moral residue of Jim survive his rebirth? Can a Cenobite deprived of sight and hearing retain memory or inner life? If Joey from the reboot becomes a Cenobite, what does that say about the nature of transformation and agency? Such queries keep audiences engaged because they touch on deeper issues of personhood, consent, and the consequences of violating physical and ethical boundaries. Summation. Chatterer remains one of Hellraiser's most potent creations. His remade face, perpetual teeth clicking, and status as the Cenobite's enforcer make him both terrifying and compelling. His portrayal reflects careful physical acting, demanding prosthetic work, and a symbolic design that links punishment to ritualized beauty. Whether read as the tragic remnant of a man named Jim or as an instrument of Leviathan's will, Chatterer illustrates Hellraiser's central collision between extreme corporeal transformation and existential consequence. If you enjoy detailed examinations of horror characters and lore, follow Richard Barron Horror for further explorations. Welcome your thoughts on Chatterer's possible origins or any other Hellraiser figures you'd like examined.
No, it is not hands that call us.
It is desire.
It is desire.